I don't remember the year or exactly how old I was, but there was a strange Easter in my western Pennsylvania homeland many years ago. The Easter preparations had been made in earnest, the eggs were dyed, the baskets had been set out for the bunny, and we went to bed on a springtime night with visions of jelly beans dancing in our heads, and we were prepared for the next day. When we awoke on Easter morning, we were greeted by 2 feet of snow. That happened in the days before the intricacies of weather radar and the advanced warnings of weather events that we receive today. In those days, if it snowed, and you simply dealt with it. I imagine there was considerable discussion about the fate of the Easter services. Sunrise service, we actually had those back then, were canceled. The fate of the 2 morning services hung in the balance. The powers that be decided it would be nearly heretical to cancel Easter, so everything went on as planned, with a significantly smaller congregations than had been expected and a choir that sounded more than a little on the thin side. An Easter blizzard. Gotcha. My former pastor and mentor, the Reverend Dr. Richard M. Cromie, used to tell the story of the man who missed Easter. Dick had gotten home in the early afternoon following morning Easter services and a few stops afterward. He pulled into his driveway and he saw his neighbor who greeted him. "How's it going today, Rev?" Dick said, "Oh, we had 2 great services this morning. Beautiful music, big crowds, beautiful lilies. Everyone looked so fine." Rev?" the neighbor asked. "Was this Easter?" "Of course it's Easter," Dick replied. "Oh my God," the neighbor said, "I missed it." The neighbor's life had been swallowed up in the worry of so many things. His wife had recently died. The world was a strange place. He had gone for a morning drive, stopped for some breakfast, and returned home to his empty house. Distracted by the puzzlement that is sometimes life, he missed Easter. Gotcha. It's a little strange to celebrate the resurrection of the Lord on a day when tricksters are at work. I checked my place up here in the chancel this morning for fear that some renegade choristers might have put a whoopee cushion in an inopportune place. I'm nearly afraid to take a drink out of this glass of water for fear someone has spilled a dribble glass and placed it here for my benefit. At some point in this day, someone will get us and say, "Gotcha." The story from the Gospel of John, with which we began the service, is depicted in our Tiffany window here in the sanctuary. It's the story of Mary Magdalene coming to the tomb early on the first day of the week. Her grief was real and raw. She had come to the tomb for her own reasons, and John's gospel does not tell us what they were. But she was brokenhearted and filled with the pain and sorrow that a sudden and gruesome death always brings. She arrived at the tomb and things were not as they should have been. The stone covering the door was removed. She ran back to where the disciples were hiding with the news that someone had stolen the body of Jesus. Peter and the other disciple, tradition would tell us that it was John, ran to the tomb and saw what Mary had seen and then returned to their concealment. Mary, however, stayed near the tomb. On looking in, she saw 2 angels in white, and that only confused her all the more. They asked her why she was weeping. She gave them the answer: "They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." They gave her no other information, according to the gospel account. But Mary turns and sees a person she believes to be the gardener. In an intentional spoiler alert, the gospel tells us that it was Jesus. They converse, as they had undoubtedly conversed many times, but Mary never realized with whom she was speaking. Grief and a broken spirit can do that to you. Finally, Jesus speaks her name, Mary, and she realizes that it was Jesus. Mary. Jesus could have said, gotcha. The resurrection of Jesus Christ is God's ultimate surprise. We thought we had the last word on Jesus. We didn't want his message. We weren't interested in what he came to bring. We didn't want to make the changes and the sacrifices that are inherent in being part of the whole Jesus thing. We wanted to be in charge. We wanted to take what we could get. We wanted God to back off and allow us to take over. And the truth is that much of the time we still do. We believe that we know better than God. And so in order to silence the message, we silence the messenger. And make no mistake, everything that happened then would happen now with our help. We colluded with the religious and political authorities to kill Jesus and to have things our way. We were there through the abandonment, the injustice of a mock trial, the torture, and the execution. We cannot be separated from any of it. Humanity rejected God and killed God's messenger. But God had the last word. And I'll let you in on a little secret. God always has the last word. God had the last word, and the last word was, oh, no, you don't. You thought you had shut me up? I'm back. Gotcha. And there's the good news of Easter. Considering what we had done to Jesus Christ, God had every right to wash the divine hands of us. We had rejected God, and we sought to take from God that which is God's alone, namely the authority over everything in creation. We planned a coup d'etat against God. We conspired against God to eliminate God from any involvement in our world. And our efforts failed gloriously. God raised Jesus from the dead, and in that action displayed for us and for all the world to see that God is not vindictive, nor spiteful, nor resentful, nor malevolent, but merciful, compassionate, gracious, and forgiving. In the resurrection of Jesus Christ, we see who God truly is, a God of love, who is capable of the most supreme acts of forgiveness and love imaginable. In the resurrection of Jesus Christ, we see God gifting us with a new beginning, a fresh start, a new, and dare we even think it, eternal life. Just when we think we were in the worst trouble we could ever be in, just when we think the judgment is about to be passed on us that will make things worse than we ever dared imagine, just when we think that an unpardonable act has been committed and we are standing waiting condemnation, God says, gotcha. The tomb is empty. Christ is risen. You have been forgiven. Go and forgive. You have been restored. Go and restore. You have been given new life. Go and offer that new life to everyone you meet. Mark Twain, my sometimes alter ego, has a wonderful statement for this day. Twain says, "This is the day upon which we are reminded of what we are on the other 364. He was speaking of April Fool's Day. But it's true of Easter as well. On Easter, we are reminded that we are people of the resurrection, which is true on the other 364 days as well. on this strange and wondrous day when we celebrate the resurrection of the Lord and play a good-natured prank or two, the word for the day is gotcha. God has surprised us in raising Jesus from the dead. Gotcha. And we have been given the good news to surprise a weary world. Gotcha. Christ is risen. God got us with a good one. And we are not the same. Not now, and not forevermore. Amen.